So we are going to transition to our special guest. Andre, I mean, for Robin and I, our running joke for the week, and we shared this with Catherine, is like, you went from being an image on the wall. So did Catherine tell you the story about my cousin Rachel? She's gonna kill me for making this out there.
She did, and I was embarrassed because, you know, I can't imagine what picture it was. But
I can show you what picture it was. No, it was from the album cover. It was from the album cover. But the story is, fam, is that this is before we were even into Prince. My cousin Rachel, who I laud, tonight is her anniversary, and so she's spending it with her husband. But Rachel is like, you know, everybody has that older cousin who puts you on. Rachel's that person for me. And going to her house, I remember it was like maybe like 80, it was like 83 or 82. And I was like, who's that? She had a picture, very handsome guy on the wall. And I was like, who's that? And she said, I don't know, but he's cute. So I put him up. So, and fast forward, here we are. I'm 45 years old, and it was Andre Cymone. So Andre, it's wonderful to have childhood dreams in front of you. And thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. We are now going to be shifting the show to really focus on you as an artist. Thank you so much for joining us from the onset, so you can get an idea of where we're going with the show. Your presence is greatly appreciated. And you know, along the lines of the commitment of the interaction, our other commitment, like we shared with Catherine, around having special guest artists on, is that we want to hear about you. And really understand you in the context, because we understand sometimes that the Prince story gets to be so big and it gets to be all about Prince, but no one gets to be successful in isolation. And for me personally, and I know for Robin, you are one of those heroes in the story, and we are so pleased to have you in the mix tonight. So we didn't get your bio, and that's okay, because we're gonna test this group. All right, so in the chat, fam, I'm asking that you light up the chat with, what do you know about Andre Cymone? What do you know about Andre Cymone? Let's get this chat going. Robin, you have it pulled up in front of you, so you can get it going. All right, awesome. So light up the chat. Andre is the real deal. Word, facts. That's facts right there. See-through pants. I had a question about the see-through pants. Okay, your dirty mind, see-through pants. That's true. That's true. An unsung hero, yes. Oh, Lord, that's dope. Why you play the bass? You produce Love, yeah, by Pebbles.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Live performances, everything. Yeah, we got a chance to see Andre a couple of years ago when he was here in New York. That's his mom. We got some questions about, definitely got some questions about Anderson.
Unzipped jeans man. That's Cassandra.
Should have heard what my grandmother said about that.
Oh, yeah. We got to get into that.
The T.C. Carson album, people slept on it. Politically Aware.
That's a great album.
Minneapolis Uncle, okay. Man with Integrity. Tom Jones, yeah, Sarah, Tom Jones, yeah, I forgot about that. Eclectic Style. Andre's a trailblazer with many years in the business as a songwriter, musician, and all-around entertainer who has not compromised who he is or what he believes in for anything or anyone. Yeah, I was sharing with Catherine, Andre, after we spoke to her, I got in my car, I had to run whatever errand it was, and Kelly's Eyes came on my iPhone. I was like, okay. My phone knows.
Kelly's Eyes.
Used to be married to Jody Watley. I was washing clothes and Still a Thrill came on. Again, iPhone knows. It's one of my favorite tracks. I love her vocal on that. Fountain of Youth, Still Looks Young, yes. Yeah.
Flag don't crack.
I take my glasses off and then, I don't know. No, I don't know.
We still keep it going. She would still put you on the wall. Her husband may question it.
Yeah, I can't do it today. I'm sorry. It would be an issue. It says you were with Prince in Schoolyard. I love that song. I didn't realize you were Ace. But that makes
He's
sense.
Ace. He's Ace. I always thought so.
I always thought maybe, but someone says, yeah, okay. A true OG. Someone says, even with the glasses off, you look young. Yeah, I try to hide behind my glasses, but then I'm nearsighted and farsighted because I'm getting old, so I just have to just keep them off and look at the screen like this.
I'm not just wearing these to try to look cool. These are prescriptions.
Yeah, so we're doing Black Man in America, right? Yes. Okay, it's one of my favorite. I love this track, Andre. This track is dope. So we're gonna go into watching Black Man in America. And while the video is going, could we light up the chat with what do you want to know about Andre? So I know some questions passed. I know, Eddie, I caught your question. So you definitely, Eddie, you're on my list. So be prepared to ask your question. Let's get some questions for Andre, and we're gonna get the fans talking to Andre in a few. So Robin, if you will, you have host power, Robin. Surviving in the 80s on vinyl, yes. Yes. Okay, so this is Black Man in America. So let's get those questions going, fam. What do you want to know? Can't hear it, Robin.
I think, Robin, just unmute yourself and that should open up the audio.
You think, Kat?
Sorry about that. Okay, here we go.
We cannot escape from the sound and acts of history. White, red, yellow, or black. You can never hide the past. Not if you really want to understand the present.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Yes.
You don't know what it's like to be a black man in America. You don't know what it's like to be a black man in America.
I was bred and born and sold like a mule. In spite of all of this, I had to keep loving the people who denied me fairness. I remain Malcolm X as long as there's the need to protest and struggle and fight against the injustices that our people are involved in this country.
In America, you need 4 policemen that provide the same private area. They all need only 2 pistols, and a rifle and a shotgun, and a big dog in case that don't work. I said, what do we want? When do we want? I said, what do we want? When do we want? Show them what we talking about, Trey.
Their reasoning is simple. It takes money to obtain advantages such as higher education and better housing, which means that for millions of Negroes denied an equal chance in the job market, the American dream is beyond reach.
So funky. So funky.
Love it.
I don't know if you guys could hear it.
So funky. Could you hear it?
Oh, I could hear it, but I don't know if you guys could hear it at the end.
Oh.
It's Mick Murphy from the System singing with me.
Oh, were you playing Dance Electric? What are you doing? Oh, I can hear you. Yeah. Well, Robin and I she's at my house. But I'm sorry, Andre, what's the last thing you said? We missed that.
I was just saying, I don't know if you could hear it at the end. That's Mick Murphy from the System singing with me on that. He's singing on that song. In fact, he came up with the "You don't know what it's like. You don't know what you don't know what it's like." So
that actually was a question. I think Blue asked that question: who's singing with you on this track? Yeah. As a Black man in America, Andre, you know what we know. What would you want us to know about you that was not shared?
As far as what?
You can sing to the music.
Period. What would I want you to know about me as a Black man? Period.
Sure.
What would you? I don't know. I mean, I'm a family man, family oriented. I love, obviously where I come from. I think our experiences make us who we are. I guess I'm an artist, I'm a painter, poet, all the different things that a lot of people don't know much about that side, because I do a lot of paintings, not as much as I used to. For a while I would do it a lot more, but I don't do it as much now. And I don't know, I don't know if I can show some of the art that I do, but
I'd love to see that.
Should I show you? Okay. Give me just a second. Hang on a second, because I have to take it off.
You can't say to an art historian, I'm going to show you paintings, and then not show the art historian the paintings. What's that? You got to show us the painting.
All right, here's one.
Wow.
Wow. Oh my God, gorgeous.
It's beautiful.
I actually did this at my mom's house, Minneapolis.
Wow.
That is beautiful.
Beautiful.
Do you find that the painting inspiration and the music inspiration is from the same place, or do you tap into different areas of source to create the painting versus the song?
I totally tap into different sources. I think this one you should probably tell the kids, if there's kids, they should close their eyes, because this one's a little.
Oh, nice. Nice, nice.
It's beautiful.
Andre, is that pencil or was that ink? Pencil, beautiful.
So yeah, so I do a little painting, a little sketching, and obviously poetry and all that kind of stuff. And
You blew minds in the chat, Andre. People did not know that one.
oh yeah, well, I mean, I guess there's probably a lot about me people might not know. I guess that's why you asked.
Exactly. Because we think we know, but there's so much more than what's shared, and we really want to get to the heart of that. So, this whole episode is around being woke, and as you said, your life is your life, and it shows up in how you express your art. So, talk to us about growing up Black in Minneapolis, Minnesota. What was that like?
Well, I could go all over the place. I mean, growing up Black in Minneapolis is, if you think about the 60s, and how it connects to now, because growing up in the 60s, those riots and revolutions going on back then, it was really not a whole lot different, which is what's sad. And, to kind of touch on a little bit of what you were talking about with some of the Prince stuff, it's just sad that we haven't evolved further. I mean, obviously we have evolved, and I think that it really is important that we recognize that there's been an evolution to where we are, because I know a lot of times people think that nothing's changed, and things have changed. But of course, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as Black people are concerned, period, they're not changing fast enough, and by anywhere near the stretch of anybody's imagination enough. And so I think growing up, I mean, in our community, we had community centers. And if anybody, the historians can probably speak to this, is, when you think about the 60s and you think about the educational system and where it was at that point, because you talk about integration and you mentioned about busing, and, Prince got bused. I came from the projects. There was no getting bused. So it was just what it was. But when I think about the community, and our schools, we had programs, we had music programs. That's why they're even, that's why Prince and I, and Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis and anybody else you might want to name from Minneapolis even had a shot, is because they had music programs in schools. And then obviously once they, when schools became integrated, they were like, okay, well, now that we have to let these Black folks in these schools, we're going to take the programs out of the schools. We're going to take the music programs out, we're going to take the art programs out, and we're going to hollow them out. We're going to send them out to the suburbs where we're, busing folks like Prince and whoever else got a shot at getting bussed out to those kind of places. And they're going to get, the good stuff. And then they left the school we used to go, the schools that we went to kind of, without some of those things. And as time went on, they systematically, and you talk about systematic racism or institutional racism, they systematically started taking more and more stuff away and hollowed it out. And then to exacerbate that whole reality even further, because when we were growing up, there were a lot of community centers. We had, like a YMCA, YWCA, we had the Boys Club, and then we had the Way, right? And, these are places that we as youngsters went to and relied on, especially a knucklehead like me, because I'm not gonna lie, I was a knucklehead. I mean, straight up, I can't, anybody who really knows anything about, me as a kid, obviously, really thanks to Prince, he kind of pulled me a little more out of that whole reality, because I was going in a direction that probably wasn't going to serve me well. But the community center, you know, was a place for us to go and do our music and sort of, you know, get us, you know, refocused on something a little more, you know, positive. And, you know, thanks to people like Spike Moss and some other people that were in the community at the time that were, you know, instrumental in you know, in sort of giving us outlets for our music. And but the issue, the problem for me was that what they did to that community systematically is a travesty. And they basically, what they did is they tore down the way the community center, the main hub in the community. They tore it down and built a police station in its place. Okay, I mean, which was just sad. And then we had a McDonald's on the corner that we used to kind of hang out at, you know, in the area. Well, they tore that down. Across the street, they built a funeral parlor, you know, and this is Plymouth and Penn. This is like the main, you know, where everybody used to hang out. So it just changed the dynamic. And then they flooded the community with drugs and guns. And, you know, I mean, you know, it's funny because you see it reflected. You almost can't believe that it's actually true, because, you know, very few people ever have a platform large enough to speak on it. And that's why it's important for people to speak about these things, because people just say, oh, that never happened. Yeah, well, it did happen. And I know it happened because I've seen it happen. I came from that community. I know what happened. And, you know, and it's not until, you know, you see somebody put their knee on somebody's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds and you go, oh yeah, maybe they're true. Maybe all these things we've heard is no, yeah, it's true. We've been saying this, you know, I get upset because, I mean, I was, you know, pretty militant back in those days, and I still am, obviously, with a song like that, because I'm just, you know, just saying it. You know, we used to get, you know, back then you would be hung, you'd be lynched, and all the different things, and it just is what it is. And, you know, I mean, I don't have a whole lot of patience for people trying to deny anything. You know, I think we're way past time for, you know, dealing with change and all that other kind of stuff. I'm not the one. I'm not the one to sugarcoat anything, because it's just not in my nature. And anybody knows anything about me and my family and my mother and all the different things, it's like I come from activism. You know, my uncle was a war photographer. My dad was an inventor as well as a musician. So I mean, you know, one of my older brothers was a pimp and a hustler. My other brother I just come from a family of very diverse, you know, reality. And obviously, thanks to my mother being a strong Black woman, she was able to bring all of us together, everybody around. She turned my older brothers around. She turned me around. Obviously brought, you know, Prince and let him come in. And obviously we were able to do the things that we were able to do musically. Yep. And she allowed us, you know, to do that and make her and Miss Jackson from across the street. And, you know, and the community, I mean, it was, you know, for us, you know, you hear that adage that it takes a community. Literally, it took a community, because, you know, you say nobody can do it on their own. There would have been, I can guarantee you, if it wasn't for our community, there would have been no Prince, there would have been no Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, there would have been none of that. And I don't, you know, anybody can say whatever they want. But I know, you know, Morris, I you know, even if you read their books and all that kind of stuff, you understand how they got to where they got and who was involved and what, you know, so it's not a mystery. It's just is what it is. So I know that a lot of people like to try to get in and maybe rewrite stories and change the narrative, and, you know, but I can't allow that. I can't, in all good conscience, I can't do that, because when you start to mutate the reality, unfortunately, it starts to mess with my life. You know, and it's like, you know, Prince's thing is one thing. I mean, he's, you know, he could speak for himself, and he would say things sometimes that, you know, I mean, so did I. When we would do interviews, we would say whatever we wanted to say, you know, to say, what's your favorite sign? What's your sign? You know, we'd say, you know, dragonfly, or just whatever, you know, and he'd say, we heard you guys, you know, used to have girlfriends at your mom's house. And I would say, yeah, we'd tape them to the ceiling, and, you know, and I would just say, you know, yeah, we would just make stuff up, you know, and we actually had a kick out, because we were, you know, we were kids, you know, we were teenagers, and we were having fun, and we were actually living, you know, you seldom get to just live your dream. We were living our dream as teenagers. So I think, so anyway, I mean, I'm drifting off, but, you know, I guess to be a Black man in the community, in the Black community, was really special. I mean, you know, it really was. And then to, you know, to come full circle And here we are, you know, where we're at right now, pandemic, riots, and revolution. On one hand, excuse me, it's a beautiful thing to be a part of, because, you know, there's gotta be change. And it's gonna take everybody, you know, because so I was glad to see that you said, you know, we need white folks to speak on this, because you know, I mean, it really, we know what's going on. You know, we live it every single day, every time we get in a car. I mean, the reality is there is no police force for Black people. You know, you call the police in the Black community, you're subject to get shot yourself. You know, first, now what happened? You know, it's like, no. It's just, you know, anyway, I drift off, but like I said, you know, I'm not the one. I'm going to try to keep it real. I mean, you know, my experience in the Black community has not been, on one hand, it's beautiful. On one hand, you know, I've been stopped by the police. I've been arrested. One time I got arrested literally with prints on the back of my brother's motorcycle. We were riding around the neighborhood. Literally, police stopped me, you know, and they asked me, and because I'm, you know, I can be, you know, the knucklehead I can be, so I'm harassing them. And they're asking me, where's your license? I said, I thought you had it. And so I'm start playing games, and, you know, because I'm, you know, I think somehow or another I'm gonna just be able to, you know, BS the police, you know, and so I'm going back and forth, and I'm like, isn't it against the law to block the flow of traffic? And he's like, yeah, why? And I was like, because look, your car is blocking people from getting around you. Maybe you should move. And they're like, okay, that's enough. And then the next thing I know, I'm in a squad car, and Prince has to, you know, go get my mom. And then my mom comes down there with Right On magazine talking about
the same picture Rachel had on her wall, see?
Yeah, probably. You know, talking about, can you get him out of here? He's you know, and I'm going stir crazy because, you know, because I wouldn't let him fingerprint me, right? Because I'm thinking my fingers are sacred, and I'm not going to let them, you're not, you know, all this nonsense. And so, but then I'm in there with this brother, and he's like, you Andre Cymone? And I'm like, oh, shh. And he's like, hey, you know, I met one girl, we used to mess with this one girl, you used to mess with, man. And I'm like, okay, you can fingerprint me now. Let me out. Uncle. So anyway, so I had to get out of there, and then Prince and my mom will wait for me, and yeah. So growing up.
So Andre, our first episode was dedicated to the women, and your mom came up, and again, another hero, right? I'm so clear on who she was for Prince at what could have been the most fragile age, right? The age where he could have totally gone in a totally different direction, and we wouldn't be having this conversation about the legacy left behind. Would you honor us and talk to us about Bernadette Anderson, who she was as a woman, a mother, and I see her as like a healer, honestly, because I mean, she had you and your siblings, and then she takes Prince into her home. And understand that I'm coming from the space of being an educator. I'm a superintendent of schools in New York, and when I was community schools, I work at the district, the borough support level now, but I used to work at the community level, and I served in Ocean Hill, Brownsville, which is one of the poorest congressional districts in New York City, and actually in the country. And a lot of our families within Brownsville are just subject to, you know, there's a disproportionate number of shelters in Brownsville. There's a disproportionate number of children who are in foster care, you know, consistently fighting for the re-enfranchisement of people who are marginalized. And, you know, as a kid growing up, I heard about your mom, but now being an adult and somebody who's on the front line and constantly pushing for the transformation of communities and what it means to see children of color and give them the education that they deserve. Your mom definitely is that hero. So would you please, you know, bless us with who she was and her legacy.
You know, my mom, she was a queen, first and foremost. She was, you know, always respected. I mean, I never raised my voice to my mom. I never talked back to my mom. I had nothing but respect from day one to the day she passed away, and I was right there with her. You know, I mean, I don't know what, there's so much to say. Let's see, where to even start, you know, because obviously she was, she had my first, my oldest brother at 15. I think so. She was married at 14. Had my first brother at 15, something like that. Basically, in essence, my mother worked. She was, you saw the movie The Help? That was my mom. That was how she, when I was a kid, that was our reality. And so she worked away, worked 2 jobs. Actually, she worked there and worked at the grade school I went to as a hall monitor. And worked away, worked 2 jobs, and managed to, get herself into a position to go to school. And she went to, University of Minnesota, got her education, got a degree, and, was able to make some money and got us out of the projects and obviously into that house that, we started making music and putting our band together and all that kind of stuff. But she, started working for the Y, YWCA. She created programs, youth programs for, teen pregnancy programs, just, neighborhood youth corps programs. Got me and Prince jobs. A lot of people have no idea. I could go on and on, but, made us vote for the first time, got us out there as soon as we were old enough to vote, made us go vote. Both of us, just for, those who say, Prince didn't vote and he was whatever, whatever he did later on, is whatever he did later on. But I just know at that point, she made both of us get out and go vote. She raised all of us, brought us up. If we didn't have food, which sometimes we didn't, it was school meals. Government cheese was a reality. It's like, but her thing is we were not going to go hungry. And so it's just, I can go on and on. She was Juneteenth. She was always the queen. She was riding in the back of the car. I got pictures of her. She's turned so many people's lives around. She had a community center named after her. She worked at the Ruth Hawkins Y, which is another Y besides the one downtown. She had one that was right near North High School that had youth programs and drum and bugle corps, and you name it. She had, all kinds of programs. Some that I'm not, because I was living my life, I wasn't really familiar with exactly all of the programs. I just know that she was always involved in helping people, and at the same time, she had a circle of friends, group of friends that were just always involved, always into activism, always involved in the community. She was, on the board of directors at the only Black radio station in Minnesota, KMOJ, KUXL, which it was at first, and KMOJ. And it goes on and on. And obviously, I don't know if you've ever seen the picture, but, we won Family of the Year. And so for those of those folks who think that Prince obviously just lived with us for, a year or whatever. You don't get, you don't win Family of the Year because you just find this guy and say, hey, come on, we want to win Family of the Year. So come and live with us for, 6 months or a year or whatever. And that kind of nonsense. It's like, everybody in the community that was around and involved knew that we were a family, a very tight-knit family, with everybody involved. And everybody, had very much influenced and inspired, obviously, Prince and myself. My brothers, my brother Eddie was extremely, extremely important in, you talk about the slave and putting the slave on Prince's face and all of that. Well, the concept of a lot of that stuff and ownership and all of that was stuff that my brother would preach to us, whether we wanted to hear it or not at the time, because he would come to my room and, him and Prince actually were down in the basement. He had one side of the basement, Prince had the other side. So you couldn't get away from it if you wanted to. And he would come, if you said you were interested in something, whatever the subject, because I'm really extremely interested in filmmaking. I write screenplays and stories and all that kind of stuff. But I've always been interested in that ever since I was a kid. And so he would come and he'd have like, if you said, hey, I wonder how films are made. The next day you'd come and there'd be a stack of books by your bed, of everything to do with filmmaking and writing, Sid Fields and you name it. And, if you want to know about publishing and all that kind of stuff, Prince would talk about, what about publishing? The next day he would have a stack of books, So anyway, getting back to my mother though, I don't, it's hard to, because my mother and my brother were like, you know, he was a product of my mother, and my mother was very important. My mother and my father, really my father as well, because he was a stickler for education. You couldn't, you know, he would say you couldn't, you know, talk all that kind of slang and all that kind of stuff. We do it out on the street, obviously. You know, you got to do what you got to do to keep your hustle straight. But when it came to around the house, there was no slang, and you know, you run around like this. My dad said his brothers running around looking like they handcuffed. You know, he was not having that. He was extremely, you know, and you know, I could show my father was he had patents. He had, you know, designed bow and arrows, he'd make stuff. Like there's maybe at some point I'll show you, there's a one of his patents for an arrow, because basically what it is it's like, but it's like this thing he created where, you know, you shoot, you know, an arrow, because we're from Fergus Falls, which is up northern Minnesota, which is like farm basically land. But this arrow, he just developed something where it spins around, and you know, as it goes, it's unbelievable. You'd have to see it. But anyway, so that's my mother. I mean, I could go on about my mom. I mean, just everything. And as it pertained to Prince, you know, I think I can't even quantify, you know, how important she meant to him. You know, in some ways, she was more attentive to him than she was to me, because, you know, obviously I was her child, but she was responsible for him, you know. And so, you know, I think your responsibility level goes up when it's, you know, when it's not your child. You know, it's like you're taking on this responsibility. So Andre, you know, I got you, but you know, I got to make sure you gotta graduate, you know, and you know, and so by you know, it's like, it's interesting because Prince graduated early. Me, on the other hand, I graduated late. So it just goes to show you that, you know, the disparity and the attention. I got to slide around the edges. And so when she'd go off to work, they would have to leave at the same time. My mom would say, Andre, get up. And I'd just drop a boot, you know, and then I'd hear the door shut and I'd go back and, you know, anyway, that was the reality. And, you know, obviously when you're, you know, all the different things, because I mean, you know, Prince was changing growing up, and the conversation she'd have to have with him, because, you know, we were, you know, the same height for a while, and then I had a growth spurt, and, you know, he didn't. And so, but my mom would have to have that conversation, you know. And I mean, I know it seems funny and silly and all that kind of stuff, but that's some serious stuff.
It's serious for a kid that age, yeah, absolutely. And his brother was tall, you know.
Yeah.
Where am I?
Yeah. So but anyway, that's, you know, I don't want to, you know, break any myths or any of that kind of stuff. I don't want to get too real or anything.
He was short, Andre. We accept that.
Was I thought?
we accept that. We love him anyway. It's okay. It's okay. That is a truth about him. But Daryl had a question about your dad. So Daryl.
Yes, Andre. First of all, thanks for all of your contributions to the Purple ecosystem and beyond. It's you know, a pleasure and an honor to speak with you. The question I had, I remembered reading, I don't see it mentioned often, but I remember reading in a book, I think it was Steve Ivory's book from like the mid-1980s. It said that your dad played bass in Prince's dad's band. And so it seems like you kind of followed in his footsteps by playing bass in Prince's band, but I just wanted you first to confirm that, if that's true, and also, you know, tell us a bit more about, you know, your dad, you know, what you learned from him in terms of music and other things.
Well, yeah, it's true. I mean, my dad was a musician. He was a bass player. He also played cello, by the way, but he was a bass player. And, you know, the interesting thing is, you know, that's where I learned how to play, because he had an upright bass, and that's what I learned how to play bass on, you know, and I mean, you know, and he didn't teach me. He didn't even really want me to be a musician, to be honest with you. So he didn't teach me anything when it came to, you know, playing and music and stuff like that. I had to sneak and play his bass. So as far as that's concerned, you know, other than him, you know, he taught me a lot about a lot of other things, life, and really education. I mean, I learned, you know, he taught me. He was more of a down to earth, a man's man. I mean, you know. Hunting, fishing, we would go hunting and fishing, and, you know, he taught me how to build and make things like, you know, wood, screws, pounding. And I mean, to this day, I make, I build things, and, I've, built a whole structure, a clubhouse for my kids and all that kind of stuff. So, he taught me a lot of different things about that kind of stuff. But when it came to music, he had an amazing music collection. And luckily, me being the youngest of 6, we had an extremely extensive music collection. But when I first, thought I first met Prince, we were in 7th grade, and I think you probably heard the story. We had music class together and all that kind of stuff. And I went and introduced myself to him, and hey, I'm Andre, what's your name? He said, Prince. I'm like, Prince, what kind of name is that? And we went through that whole thing. And then, and I said, what do you do? And he said, I play music. And he said, what do you do? I said, I play music. And he said, really? He said, you should come and jam. So, that, I think it was that same day, we went over to his father's house, and his father at that point had literally a 1-bedroom apartment. And so we just started jamming. He started playing the piano, and he was unbelievable on the piano. And I was like, his dad had like a kind of a, I don't know, it wasn't really a ukulele. It was larger than a ukulele, but it had 4 strings. So we were just jamming, and we were doing, he was like, I think he was tripping that, I was like, I could play. And he was like playing Man from Uncle. And so we were just jamming. So, and I started messing with, his father had this, in fact, the Paisley historians, I think that stereo system that his father had, I saw it in a picture, but it used to be in his father's, apartment. And I went over to go, I've never seen a stereo like that, because it was round speakers. It was really futuristic and all that kind of stuff. So I went to go mess with him. Prince was like, no. And I was like, what? He's like, my dad would kill me if if anybody touched that. And so I was like, nah, come on, man. What can't do too much. I'm going to just roll this back. No. So anyways, and so I went and sat back at the piano, and looking, Prince was showing me some triads and stuff like that, and saying, all you gotta do is this. And I was looking on the piano, and I saw all these pictures of his dad and all these band people, and I was like, I was like, who's that guy right there? And Prince was like, I don't know, some dude in my dad's band. This guy kind of looks like my dad, except he has hair. And Prince said, well, you can ask my dad when he gets here, because he's gonna be here anytime. So literally almost right after that, his dad walks in, and his dad is looking at me like, who the hell? Dusty. And I was like, because I think I was 12, 11 or 12, whatever. And, I had on a little flop hat, and I just looked like, something the cat might have drug in. And his dad, he was like, Skipper, I told you I want nobody in the house, and and Dad's like, well, Dad, this is Andre, and this is my dad. And I'm like, and he's looking at me like, and I was like, I felt like, okay, I'll leave, no problem. And I said, but, before I leave, I said, who, can you tell me who that is? He said, that's me. I said, well, I know that's you. I said, I mean, that right there, the guy in the back. And he looked at the picture, and he looked at me, and he looked at the picture, and he was like, oh my God. And he just started laughing and went into this whole thing about, you Fred Anderson's son. Oh my, and then he went into the whole thing. And I was like, yeah. He said, and then he said, you boys used to play when you was kids. And, and I was like, oh my God, really? I had no idea. And then after he pointed it out, I remember, why Prince looked familiar. Because I had seen him, we used to go to Seventh-day Adventist church, and I saw him there. So anyway, to answer your story, my dad definitely played in a band with Prince's dad. And I think the other thing about my father that I think is interesting, in this, age with technology and all of that. My dad used to work for the first computer company, I think, in America. It was a place called Control Data, which was, I think might have been on Plymouth Avenue or something. But, so he was in the computers. I mean, he's got all kinds of strange little computers from the 70s. And he's got, still to this day in his basement is a big giant computer that he had still in the shrink wrap and all this stuff from back then. He had taken it, and, it's like, anyway. So my father's a very, very, interesting, dude. He was, like I said, he was an inventor, and he came from a family of amazing, folks that had a history of, you know, really being involved in a lot of different things. Some things, you know, I can't even get into, but just some interesting stuff. So.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. So Robin was supposed to take over for this next part, but she's choking. So she's going, she'll be back. Andre, we wanted to lead into, she's coughing, so she's breathing. I'm clear she's okay. We wanted to lead into your activism work and the work that you've been doing. We know our world, our world is on fire. You had done a fundraiser in alignment with that release. So what's been the activism work for you on, you know, moving from growing up Black in Minneapolis to having this career that you've had? And is there anything within the activism work that you would want us to know about that we could support in? So twofold, what's the activism work that you've been doing and how can we support?
Well, I mean, you know, one of the main reasons why I got back into music, because, you know, obviously, I don't know, whoever knows or doesn't know, but I took a 27-year hiatus from me personally being an artist. And, you know, obviously, you know, helped other folks and, you know, produced and did all the different stuff. But, you know, for myself, I mean, I was, you know, I guess I was an activist even in my 27-year hiatus because, you know, I, you know, wanted to be able to make the kind of music that I wanted. I wanted to make rock and roll because I think, you know, I just thought as an artist, you know, you should be able to make whatever kind of music you want, you know, and I think touching a little bit on, I guess what you were talking about earlier about Prince and, you know, the identity sort of, you know, shifting kind of reality. I just wanted to be able to make whatever kind of music that I wanted. But when you sign to a record label and you sign to the R&B division, you know, they basically tell you you're supposed to make this kind of music. And then literally I had an executive cut out the top 10 of the R&B charts and said, why don't you focus on something sort of like that? And, you know, and the thing is, of course I could do that kind of thing, but I wasn't interested in doing that because I thought, you know, I'm the artist. I want to do whatever I want. So that was sort of my first kind of attitude when it came to that. But, you know, I got back into it because, you know, when Trayvon Martin was murdered, I just thought, you know what? Why isn't anybody speaking out about this? All these people with all these platforms, you know, and I'm off, you know, I don't have a platform, you know, but if I did, if I were, you know, I was thinking in terms of Prince and people in the NFL and NBA, and I know I wrote something on Facebook about where are all you at? You should be speaking out about this. And nobody was like, you know, crickets. So I was like, you know, forget that. I said, I'm gonna get involved in this. I write songs like I breathe, and I always have. So I just said, you know what? I just came up with Trayvon, and you know, I mean, after watching that stuff and just, you know, seeing, Zimmerman get away with this, it hurts my heart because Trayvon looks like my nephew, like literally, he looks almost just like my nephew. Looks like a lot of my nephews. Looks like one of my grandsons. It's like, you know, I mean, it just cuts to the heart. It cuts to, you know, it just cuts to who I am and where I come from. And I just think that to not speak on that is a travesty. You know, it's just, you know, and so I was like, I wrote the song and I released it, and, you know, all the proceeds went to, you know, his family and, you know, what they were trying to do. And, you know, and I did the same with, you know, when Michael Brown was murdered, you know, I did the same, you know, with Hot Night in the Neighborhood, you know, and I released that and the same thing. And then I was like, you know, I wrote, you know, my version of America when Obama was running and tried to get, you know, people to get out and vote. And then, you know, people still weren't. So then I wrote the song Vote, the first version, you know, and you don't vote, you don't count. If you don't count, you can't complain, and all of that. And then I wrote another version, but, you know, and then obviously Black Man in America, and now Our World is on Fire. And Our World is on Fire was a song that I wrote maybe about a year and a half ago. Just in my band and I have been playing it, you know, around the last few gigs we were doing before the pandemic hit. We were not performing so much anymore. but, you know, I had been playing that song, and, you know, I mean, I've, you know, a lot of songs. It's hard for me to really even explain how many songs I have that are in the vein of revolution and politics, but that's just something that I took up and I've really gotten involved in, and it means a lot to me. And I think as far as the activism and what I want people to do is obviously donate. You know, if you can afford to donate, you know, to causes, to community centers and things of that nature, and get involved. You know, I think Barack Obama said it, be the change, support, you know, and vote for people that you believe in, things that, you know, that represent who you are in your community. You know, because I think it's really important. A lot of people do not, you know, they think their vote doesn't count or whatever nonsense. That's not true. You know, it's like your vote does count. You got to be involved, and you got to get other people involved. And then where we're at now, the other thing is, I want, you know, if I could tell people to wear masks, you know, I mean, listen to the science. You know, it's not rocket science. It's just basic science. It's basic common sense and kindness and fairness. Wear your mask 6 to 8 weeks, and we could be done with this. If we could collectively get people to get their head around the reality, we can move on and get back to, you know, where we're at. But vote for people who are going to, you know, push our country into the direction that it needs to be. So, I mean, those are the things as far as activism that, you know, I stand for. I want to, you know, get people to get involved with and to understand from my perspective.
Okay, Robin's back. She's ready. She's ready to continue on. Thank you for that, Andre. But earlier in the chat, I did write about, you know, you can use your platform to inform. And I think at times people are like waiting for Superman to show up, and we are Superman. So you get to actually stand in the space that you occupy powerfully, regardless of what your space is. And, you know, the idea that, you know, the world is waiting just for you. So to sit by and not do something when you are occupying the space, I think is irresponsible, actually, because we all get to go, right? And the voice is there. So Robin?
Okay. Hi, Andre. I just wanted to know, for me, Mauri had a different experience the first time that she went to Minneapolis, but the times that I went to Minneapolis, I thought it was great. I thought it was a wonderful place. The people I met seemed really nice. I had great experiences there with everyone. And Prince always sort of made it seem as though Minneapolis was like this utopia. It was like this perfect place. It kind of painted that picture. So when I went there with that in my mind. And I think that that was the experience I got because that's what I wanted to see, because that's what I thought it was. But when I heard about Philando Castile's murder, I was like, wait a minute. It was shocking to me because I know that I hear about these stories all over the country. I hear about these stories in New York City. So hearing that was just, it was unreal for me. So then when George Floyd's murder took place also in Minneapolis, it was a double blow. Like, okay, wait, so Minneapolis is just like every other place. So there's really no place on this earth for Black people to live and survive.
So Robin, I just want to interject. So in between the George Floyd and the Philando Castile, we are at Celebration, and Kat will remember this. She was in the car. Rachel gets pulled over by the cops for driving back to the hotel. And my heart stopped. And Robin had decided not to come out that night because she was being
right. I went back to
Granny.
Rachel was driving perfectly.
Yep.
And we were in a beautiful rental car. Yep. And I was sitting in the back. Yep. And
I remember and Rachel was, you know, my cousin is she's a loving, beautiful person, and she doesn't think in those spaces. And meanwhile, I'm always like, the man is after us.
I was pissed. I was pissed.
Kat was mad. I was like, sweet Jesus.
I'm like, why?
And the Philando Castile piece had just happened. And I was just like, oh, and Rachel was like, and it was great that her energy was of that faithfulness, that it's like, she wasn't drinking. I, on the other hand, as you can see all night, right? It's like, she wasn't drinking. She wasn't doing anything inappropriate, but the fear I just remember being just like, because Philandro Castile, I remember seeing the video, and I was like, he actually was declaring, I have this weapon, I am armed, licensed. So before the George Floyd piece happened, I was already in Minneapolis. Robin, not that I didn't have a nice time my first time there, but I was hyper aware. As fair as I am, I was hyper aware that I was Black in Minneapolis. I had gotten accepted to the University of Minnesota, and my mother, and her total engagement of me at the time, took me out there. And I walked around for like 5 hours on campus until I went to the Black Student Union and saw Black people. And I was like, okay, I'm getting a whole insight into what Minneapolis is really like. Because coming from Brooklyn, where it's the UN, it was just jarring for me. And I decided I didn't go. I ended up going to Brooklyn College. But just to chime into that, Robin, because that piece stands out in my mind as a part of Celebration 3. So we had that intermittent piece between Philandro Castile and George Floyd.
Yeah, since I wasn't there, so I still didn't have that experience. Of course, I have been pulled over by the police several times. I do not drive, my husband drives, but we have been pulled over. One time we were in Florida, we got pulled over. It was extremely scary because we were in Florida, and this cop pulled us over, and he was talking to my husband, but looking at me. My husband is Arab American. I am African American, and I was petrified because we were in the middle of Florida, and this cop was looking at my husband, but talking to my husband, but looking at me like I did something. He luckily, thankfully, let us go, but it was terrifying. And there was another time we were pulled over, and we had our daughter in the car, and the cop was giving us a hard time, but he happened to look in the back seat and was like, "Oh, you have a baby. I won't give you a hard time. You can go."
Robin, I have to say that I had that feeling too, because this cop pulled us over. Rachel was driving. Mauri was in the front passenger seat.
Cat was in
I
the back.
was in the back.
Where's God for Cat being in the back?
He looked at the girls in the front, and then he looked at me. And then for some reason, like, his attitude changed a little bit, and he made Rachel get out of the car and do the thing, and then he let us go. And I gave him the stink eye, like, oh, you see me back here, and now you're all different, right? Because you don't want me to see shit, but I know what you're doing. And I had this weird, and I gave him a look, I swear I was like this.
She did.
Because I did. But, you know, I actually had an experience in a different country. It was probably the first time I had an experience that taught me about race. I was a student in Switzerland, and we were 4 people, but one of our friends was from Africa, and we were all going to a restaurant, but he forgot something in the car. So he said, "I'll be right back, get the table." So we went in and we got a table for 4. We said to our other friends outside, they said, fine. We said we wanted a table on the terrace. They said, great, we've got a table. We've got an empty table right there. So as they're prepping the table, our friend comes back. When the server came back to get us, she took one look at him and said, "The table's not available." We can see the frickin' table. There's nobody at it. She just cleaned it. And I said, well, no, we're not staying. That table, you set it for us. That's the table we want. Oh, no, we've got a great table in the back. No, we're not. And he was like, no, and I said, no, we can't sit. We can't do this. This is not right. But it was probably the first time, and that was in another country, where I actually saw it with my own eyes. You know, I've lived in Brooklyn my whole life, but in this strange ether, you know, you grow up Italian American, half the families racist, half the families not racist, you know, everybody's screaming over everything. You know, I had very progressive parents, a very kind of racist grandmother who we unfortunately had to spend a lot of time with, and they poison you, and you grow up messed up. But in that situation, it was the first time in my life that I saw that racism in front of my face. Like, we're not seating you. We're just not seating you. We're not giving you that table we promised you because the person in the party is not someone we want in the front of the restaurant. And I can't say I was shocked, but I was angry, and I've seen it, and I've seen it way too much in my life. And I think those experiences, as Mauri was saying, have helped me grow as trying to make myself a better person, try to be an activist for other people, not speak for them and not try to fly in like the white savior that I'm not, but to stand and be supportive of people that I'm with. And I think that's the first step in trying to educate yourself, make yourself a more understanding person. But anyway, I was there in that car, and it was believable after Castile. Absolutely.
So my actual question for Andre, like I said, after having the experience of being sort of shocked by the things that were going on in Minneapolis as a wake-up call, I was just curious if you have any thoughts around what you think Prince would have done in response to the murder. Like, since he always champions being from Minneapolis, what do you think he might have done if he was still with us to do something about it? And also, do you think that maybe you would have united with him on the activism front? And if you ever had in the past, did you ever work with him on these matters before?
It's hard to say what Prince would have done, you know, I mean, because, you know, early on I could speak to what he probably would have done because, you know, I knew him, I was a lot closer. But I think the reality is, you know, when people have the kind of superstardom he's had and make the kind of money that, you know, he made, you have to face the fact it changes you. And I had a conversation with Morris Hayes the other day, and he said, you know, who knows what Prince would have done? Can't nobody say what he, you know, but I know he would have done something. So I think I'd have to agree with that. He probably would have done something. You know, I mean, I think anybody at this point, you know, obviously for somebody like Prince who represents all the different things that it represents at this point, if you've got any kind of ability to write a message, sing a song, create, you know, you have a platform, you have to speak out at this point because people are going to start holding you accountable for not speaking up. So I definitely think he would have done something. And I do believe that we would have done something together, honestly, because one of the last conversations we had, we talked about building a community center in our community. And, you know, he had called me up, he tended to call me up out of the sky blue, and then, you know, we'd have these conversations, and sometimes they'd last for hours, but we talked about that. And, you know, and my attitude was we need to reimagine the Black community, because I think that's what needs to happen in terms of moving the reality forward. We have to reimagine the Black community. We have to build structures in the Black community designed by Black architects and design, you know, and all of that. It's just, but it has to be more than just, you know, because in the past, we're always getting hand-me-down this and hand-me-down that, some old building that they throw together and say, hey, you can, you know, it needs to be, you know, because I think sometimes people lose sight of reality. You know, you talk about Black Lives Matter and why Black Lives Matter. Blacks have invented everything from peanut butter to the banjo to, you know, helping develop the light bulb, the telephone, the lawnmower, rock and roll, funk, R&B, jazz, you name it. And people act like somehow or another, us giving us anything is like giving us a handout or something. Like we don't pay taxes. Like it's just, it's absurd, the attitude. So I think the Black community needs to be reimagined, and it needs to be built up, developed, and created in a whole different, you know, reality. And that's one of the things we talked about, having, you know, a playhouse and writing plays about Black folks, so that when Black folks in the community take their kids to these plays, they're learning about heritage. They're learning about, you know, Cab Calloway or Duke Ellington or Ella Fitzgerald, you know, whoever. I mean, there's so many stories. You know, I mean, it's just, there's so many, not just stories, but rich stories, and musicians writing, you know, symphonies from a Black perspective. why not? Why not Black Harry Potter? Why not, Black Lord of the Rings? All of these things that, other people get to do. And, because getting back to, why Black Lives Matter, in my opinion, is because all of these different things that we were a part of, not to mention, what America was, what America did. There's an amazing book called Barracoon, which I think people should read. But there's a lot of, it's just to understand the history and how far we've come and why we need to be, why Black Lives Matter and why people are saying Black Lives Matter. It's not just some statement random and all of that. It's just, there's a history, and it just seems like, people are not connecting. And then I think the other thing we need to do, and I think that the slogan "Defund the Police" is basically, I think it's counterproductive in a certain way. But I definitely think that restructuring the police department has to happen. It just has to happen. And I think that's part of a Black community that's self-sustaining. You have businesses, you have banks, and everything itself. Because obviously the way it is not working for Black folks. And if we keep going in this direction, it ain't never going to change. So, the conversation that he and I had, it didn't get that deep, but that's just where I am. But that's one of the things that we talked about, because I think we need to, I mean, the police department is like, I think I said it earlier, you call the police and they're probably subject to shoot you just for calling them. And that's one thing. And then the other thing is like, I got into a conversation, because sometimes I get into it with folks online, whether it's on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, about, defund the police. Because there's people in Minneapolis that, and it's mostly white folks who think somehow or another, why are they burning up their neighborhood? Why are they burning up and looting all of this and doing all of that? It's like, listen, did you think that all of these years of oppression and the free labor you got and all of that kind of stuff didn't come with a price tag? There's a price tag to that. And the price tag is, we're gonna have to have a revolution. Until things change, until you start to really get rid of these private for-profit prisons, because that's what all of this stuff, really break it down to what it's really all about. Get rid of the Fraternal Order of Police, make the police department a community-based law enforcement agency, take out all the, incentives for them to do things that are, under the table, that are not, things that they should be involved with. They're half of them are way in over their head. They don't know what they're doing. They see somebody Black, they think, oh, I saw a movie. That's the guy from, Minister Society. I need to kill, because I need, oh, that's Juice. Oh, that's Boys in the Hood. I'm in the Boys in the Hood movie now. And then, it's like, no, you're not. You're in my neighborhood and you're trespassing. You're treating us disrespectfully, and it's going to stop. And, and I mean, the idea that somebody in 2020 can actually run up on me and disrespect me. Excuse me, I start getting angry, but I don't care who it is. You don't know me, I don't know you, stepping to me like, somehow or another, you're gonna do some, we can do this, but then they got a gun and a badge. And then they got all of this other stuff behind them. And minus that, anyway, I don't want to even go there, because it just becomes an issue. Because, look, I mean, it's been long enough that this has been allowed to continue. So now everybody Black that has a platform, because you think about the NBA, the NFL, I mean, baseball, all of these things, music, entertainment, how many of these things have Blacks contributed to and bring billions and billions and billions of dollars? And, and somehow people still act like we should get handouts. Like, oh, giving the Black community money for their schools. Oh no, we can't afford that. Why should we? They want handouts and welfare. That's all they want. What do we have to create? What do we have to invent that makes people wake up and say, no, it's not a handout. We are here. There's no boat coming. When you took us from Africa, this became Africa. Okay, this is our Africa now. So get that in your head. Ain't gonna change. We ain't going anywhere. So deal with it. And the sooner we deal with it, and that's what this is all about. That's why I think you got white folks and everybody from all across the spectrum realizing this has got to stop. This is insanity. This is absolute insanity. And everybody that's smart, that has a brain in their head, understands that this is not sustainable. It's going to keep being, listen, Black people don't want anything that they don't work for, period. That's just a fact. Get that out of your head. You give us our opportunity that we deserve and that we work for and we earn, we're going to do whatever we want. We're going to do what we need outside of you. So reimagining the Black community, you're going to find a community that's going to be beautiful and amazing and all inclusive. We're not going to try to keep anybody out, but it's going to be unbelievable. It's going to be creative. There's going to be arts and entertainment. It's going to be beautiful. Minneapolis can be, be the mecca of that. And I think that that's part of what the dream should be, because I think Minneapolis is a beautiful place. The only thing that's ugly about it is the racism. The racism is what makes it ugly. The police department and the brutality, because basically the Black community is like this little, it's in every state across the union. The Black community is this little place where they Section 8 or whatever they do to try to push you into, make it extremely affordable to shove you into, and you can sign up for this program as long as you ain't got no husband. You can get this program and you can get a place for, real cheap. I mean, it goes on and on, the systematic racism that they created to put you in this place. And then they hire the police to keep you pinned in that place. And then they pour drugs and put liquor stores on all the, it's absolutely absurd. And it just goes on and on. And I think, unfortunately or fortunately, the cycle has to be broken. It has to be broken by people like us right here. And it's going to take everybody. I had an interview in Paris, I think a couple of years back, where I was talking to this guy who actually brought up to me, I guess he didn't know that I was, passionate about this stuff. And I was saying, look, you have a Rolls Royce, and you drive up, you want that Rolls Royce to be just the way it is, when you left it, when you went into your nice restaurant, you want to go back out to that Rolls Royce and have it just be fine. And that could be a reality if everybody had fair education, if everybody had fair opportunity, if everybody was on an equal playing field and there was no grandfather clause here and on and on and on, all the different systematic, bullshit that they put in the way to try to keep this class system, and people with privilege and people without, it's not sustainable. So at some point, we have to wake up and we have to deal with it. We have to deal with it. Otherwise, there's going to always be rioting. People are going to burn shit down, and they're going to zero this shit out, and you can't, the only way to stop this is get rid of the prison systems, because you know what it is. It's a way to, it's basically slavery. It's just only different. It's just the same thing. And I don't care, however you want to put it and however you want to nuance it and whatever. It's the same system. You watch Harriet or any of those other movies. It's the same thing, only 2020. And some people have an opportunity. Some people moved up north, which is however you want to look at it. But if you put it in context, you can make the context that it's not changed. And so at some point, we have to shove that flag in the ground and we have to take a stand for change.
Amen.
Abolishing the whole defund the police movement. And I'll be really brief. When people are talking about that movement, they're not talking about getting rid of the police. I'd be okay with that, but that's not what people are talking about. They're talking about the fact that in many places, you call 911, everybody shows up. Police, firemen, ambulance, all of them, when it's not necessary. Also, there are not enough resources going to mental health. So somebody's pretty much acting out, they're gonna send a cop. What's the cop gonna do? The cop is not a social worker, the cop is not a psychologist. That's what they're talking about, to funnel some of that money away from the police department and into social services that would better benefit them. So you don't have to call the cops when somebody is, suicidal. So that's the thing. I hear this like confusion so often where it's just like, no, that's not what it means. We have to really, and as far as like people getting involved. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people that are already involved. They're on a grassroots level. You're never going to hear who the heck they are. You will never see their names, and they don't want to be involved with nonprofit organizations because nonprofit organizations are there to ensure that the problem stays the way it is. And people don't want, you know, a lot of us don't want our names up in front, you know? So it's not that people aren't doing anything. They're just not in front of the camera, you know? And unfortunately, we don't have enough people on a grassroots level. So everyone seems to think, oh, well, you know, there's nothing going on. I see folks out there doing the work every single day.
I think that's why, you know, a platform, somebody with a platform is important, because I think when you have somebody that's out there that people see and recognize, it becomes the beacon. And I agree with you. There's so many people. My mother was one of those people that work and aren't in front of the camera, that you don't know anything about, that you don't hear anything about, but are doing the work on the ground on an everyday basis, sweat, tears, and down there bailing people out. I mean, my brother, you know, became like a savior in the Black community in terms of, you know, whenever somebody got in trouble, you know, they would call my brother, and my brother would do whatever he could to try to get him out. Bail, bail, all of that. It's just, it goes on and on. But, you know, but you're right. But here's the thing, and this is the part of the problem is, you know, you call 911 and everybody shows up, right? You know, the ambulance and all that. But guess what happens? You get stuck with a bill that you can't afford to pay, and then they got you that way. So that's systemic race. That's a whole nother element of, yeah. And so it goes on and on. And so again, I agree, you know, but that's why these things need to be restructured, and that incentive needs to be taken out. And I think, in my opinion, I think what needs to happen in terms of restructuring the police department, I think, you know, they got to find a system that, you know, of community policing, and a system where you sit down, you meet with the police officers, you find out who's in departments that they're unhappy with, and you talk to them, and you kind of get a gauge on, you know, who's really involved in wanting to be involved in community policing, and who's not. And so you have them set up meetings and interview people, and basically have them reapply, basically, you know, and if they meet whatever the standards, they have to take a different oath of community policing, and, you know, and reapply. And if they meet the criteria and the standards, then they get hired. And then that way they don't lose seniority, and they can still move up ranks and whatever. But on the other hand, those who are not interested, you know, we give them a separation package and send them on their way. And that way you can still police, you know, but you don't stop the police force. You know, people are there's still a force there, and then you have, you know, because you got to deal with the Fraternal Order of Police and the police unions. You just run those into, you know, the same union as the fire department, EMS, and, you know, I mean, there's ways to do this, you know, where you don't have to disrupt, you know, police responding to situations. And then it becomes slowly, methodically turned into a police force that actually is community-based. And people, I think police officers should be from those communities that they police.
I was about to say, I'm not sure how it is in Minneapolis, probably like every place else, but in New York City, police officers live in either Staten Island, which, oh my God, or Long Island. They don't live in the areas that they police.
That needs to stop, because, you know, if some of the folks I know, if they know where you live and you came and you trying to arrest me and my cousin, and we didn't do nothing, we knocking on your door later at night. And we're gonna say, no, remember what you said now, say it now that it's just you and I. And, you know, anyway, but yeah, I think we need to reimagine the Black community, and we need to reimagine the police, law enforcement agency. We need to get rid of private for-profit prisons. I think you start to do these things and you start to really see change. Because when you take that greed incentive out, and then you get rid of people like, first of all, I mean, in my opinion, you got to get rid of the whole Republican Party. I mean, they just, you know, they enabled this guy. I mean, we are in the worst position possibly be in. You know, I don't know, you know, everybody, you know, thought it was funny, you know, to hire a game show host. But the thing is, you know, when somebody ruined their businesses, you know, when everything they touched, they destroyed, and they ran it into bankruptcy, you'd be surprised that our country is not where it is.
A lot of people don't know that. They don't know that Trump did all that. us New Yorkers knew. You know, us New Yorkers remember when he took out a full-page ad calling for the death of the Central 12 tribe before they were even tried. You know, we all, another thing is, Republicans are supposed to be anti-union, but they support the PBA and they support big police unions. You know, it's all ridiculous. And Trump is killing his constituents.
Yeah. By the thousands. You know, it is what it is. You know, the thing is, you know, people need to understand that, you know, I think a lot of people just want to walk around blind and forget, you know, just not deal with reality. But the reality is it's right in front of your face. Racism. The police department is the last best hope for, you know, people to hold on to, I think, what they consider privilege or whatever it is, you know, and so they're the you know, it's like they're, you know, white folks call them and say, you know, there's a black man over there, just go beat him up. It's like they're their own gang member or something. You know, it's like he don't look right, and I don't like him. You know, he's black, so go get him. And it's like I'm calling 911 on you. You know, and it's like, what kind of, how did this happen? You know, well, I know how it happened, but you know, when is it going to stop happening, and what do we all need to collectively do to make it change? So you know, so I mean, trust me, the world would be so beautiful. It would be so amazingly beautiful. You know, because there would be, crime would become a thing. Of course, there would be crime here and there, all that, but it would be absolutely a different world because people wouldn't, you know, who wants to steal something and take the risk of going to prison and jail and all that if they can get a job and actually work and have pride and, you know, bring home the bacon, literally, you know, for their family and actually be a father to their kids instead of this system that's designed to take fathers out of the community and separate that whole, I mean, it's been done. It was done back in the slave days. Now it's being done now, systematic, and it continues to be done, and ain't nobody changed it. So it's like, I mean, look, I could go on and on and on, and you know, I mean, but I think a lot of y'all know what I'm talking about because you lived it, you've been a part of it, you've seen it, and it's a part of your reality, and it's been a part. Everybody, I'm sure, on this page right now has either knows somebody or has experienced just what I'm talking about. And it's just, it's happened over and over again, and it needs to stop, and we need to stop it.
Okay, well, first I want to thank Andre for his contributions to the conversation. And also, one of the things about defund the police, my husband works for a cultural arts institution, and he is on a call every single day with a bunch of other cultural institutions in New York City that are constantly bidding and lobbying for funding. And luckily, because I guess when all of this was going on, they were actually able to get a little bit more money this year. It's all spread around, I think, like 40 or 50 cultural institutions that are all trying to get money from the government. But they actually put a little bit more in the budget this year because they are giving a little bit less to the police. So it's not enough, but it is something. And I do also feel very strongly like cultural institutions that share music and art from other cultures also brings about understanding. It brings about tolerance and things like that. I feel like so much money goes to the police. For what? For them to kill anyone who is not like them, okay? So definitely I think that things are changing, but they're changing very slowly. But any money that can be taken away from that and given to things that bring about understanding and fostering change is definitely something to fight for. So I just want to also encourage all of you to continue to fight for that. Right now, we want to jump over to Andre's video for Our World is on Fire, and then we're going to have Carlita do her presentation. I really want everyone to see this, so please stay with us. I'm going to start Andre's video now. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Alrighty. And Andre, when I saw this again, I watched it when you first posted it, and then I watched it again the other day, and I was in tears. And then I watched Carlita's presentation this morning and I had the same response. I think they both complement each other really well, and I think you're gonna love it. So here's Andre's video for Our World is on Fire.
The message that I want to get
Ooh, sorry.
out is that there is a huge difference in America between white Americans and black Americans. They are treated very differently, and although I do not want white Americans to experience what we have experienced from the police, I want the police to come to an agreement with us to give us the same opportunity to have the same protection from them that white Americans have.
Black people came to this country against their will.
There is a role for all who dream of justice that we haven't yet experienced.
You got thrown at us for what? I'm sick and tired of this. There needs to be a stop to it.
What happened?
There's no in the middle about this situation. You're either for this movement or you're against it.
We come today to acknowledge that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Stuck in a right here, right.
Want to be like Trump? Gimme, gimme, gimme. Push, 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 push. Step, step, step. Crush, crush, crush.
That is really powerful. And I still feel like it brings up a lot of emotions. So thank you for that. So now I want to introduce Carlita. Carlita, are you ready, my dear? Yes, there you are.
Yeah, I'm ready.
So Mauri, she can share her screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, am I on? Am I on?
Yes.
Am I sharing my screen? I never did.
All right, yeah, I made you co-host.
All right, cool.
You're good to go. So Andre, I texted you in the chat.
Oh. Sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. Okay, I don't know what's going on. Hold on a second, guys. Can you see my screen? Yes, no?
Not yet.
No.
Did you click share screen at the bottom of the screen?
All right, yeah, I got it now. Okay, there we go. Okay. All right, guys, enjoy. I made this with a lot of love. So these are all of the photos that I took during the protest for the Black Lives Matter protest that happened in the beginning of June, end of May. So enjoy, everyone.
Seriously, I was brought up in a black and white world. And yes, black and white, night and day, rich and poor, black and white. And I listened to all kinds of music when I was young. And when I was younger, I always said that one day I was going to play all kinds of music and not be judged for the color of my skin, but the quality of my work. When a rocket ship explodes and everybody still wants to fly, hey, some say a man ain't happy truly unless a man can truly die. Oh, why mess with your mind? Mess with your mind. Maybe make a speech, Star Wars fly, neighbors just shining on. But if the night falls and a bottom falls, will anybody see the dawn? Mess with your mind. But chances girlfriend came across a needle and soon she did say, at home there's 17-year-old boys and they're having fun. Speeding the gang called the disciples hide on crack, shooting the machine gun. Hurricane out of the ceiling of the church, killed everyone inside. telling every other story savage about his down. Sophisticated baby, cause she couldn't afford to feed. Never sent the people to the moon. Tim and my cousin tried even for the very first time. Now he's going home. It's true. I haven't built any walls around myself. I'm just like anyone else. I need love and water. And I don't really consider myself a superstar. I live in a small town and I always will. Because I can walk around and be me. And that's all I want to be. That's all I ever tried to be.
Okay. Hold on. Okay. Okay, everybody.
Carlita, I'm over here at Toast Soul Robin, so I'm trying not to cry. That was beautiful, sis.
A little bit. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
I just want to say also that Carlita came out to the Women's March with my group. We went last January, and she also took incredible photographs of the Women's March in 2019. She has done incredible work in protest movement photography. And Carlita, I'm so proud of you. I think these images are historical. Thank you for taking them.
So Carlita, you've been hearing the conversation. Talk to us a little bit about your role, and thank you for sharing your work with us. That generosity is living with me.
Thank you. Thanks everybody. Thank you for the comments. Sorry, I'm like a crybaby. I saw that Paisley Park video, made me cry. Yeah, definitely Prince has been so motivational for me during this time. And I definitely, I made this video, like when you guys reached out to me, I definitely wanted to put sign of the times because this is such a weird time that we're in right now. You know what I mean? Like just with COVID and like everything that's going on. And I feel like 2020 has been the year of like revelations for everyone. Everybody's figuring it out right now. And, you know, when I went out to those protests, I was afraid, but I felt like it was my duty as an artist, as a photographer to be there and to go shoot and, you know, just be there. And, you know, a lot of those photos, you know, I saw them like, afterward, like going through them, and I was in tears because it's so powerful. You know what I mean? Like a lot of these photos are really powerful, and like I don't even know what to say. But yeah, it was a very powerful experience, you know. And you know, a lot of the time I was listening to Prince in my head, you know, and like just you know, for those who are close to me, they know how much me and Prince are connected. We're spiritually connected. And he's what really motivated me to be an artist, to take my work more serious. And when I made this video, I wanted to capture like his human side. So that's why I put that interview because that interview, he was so young, and like he was still like figuring it out, you know, and like that, I feel like that's where I'm at right now too, you know, like I'm trying to figure myself out as an artist, like where I want to go with it, you know, and where I want to take myself. So I'm not much of a talker.
No, but you speak beautifully with your camera. You speak beautifully with your camera and powerfully, and I'm clear that you know, you're going to be one of those people who really. I wrote my response to you was about thank you for capturing history, and we need artists who stand up as you do, to really be there within the times. And I hope you take in the feedback that you're getting in the chat. You're being loved on tremendously. Which shows that your work matters, and it resonates with people. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. That's what I'm here for. That's my job.
Clear.
I just want to say one thing to Carlita. I'm obviously way older than you, but I know, like, from when I first met you, you've always been so inspiring to me, because I consider myself an artist, but I didn't always. But I see you, and you're so young, and you're so driven, and it's just, I'm really proud of you. So thanks for sharing that. And when I saw it this morning, this is how I was, and now I'm like this too. But I just want to say, as a young person, you inspire me as an older person to pursue art in a way that I hadn't before. I mean, in the same way Prince inspires me since he's left us, but also I see, like, it's not too late. And this is what I think Prince and all artists want for other artists, is to do it and be great and achieve what you want. And so thank you for sharing that. I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know I love you, girl.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, Carlita, I'm so proud of you. We had some conversations earlier this week, and I said to her, people need to see your work. And I mean, you know, we've been going back and forth the last few days, and I'm just so happy, and I was so excited when you pushed play, because I knew what was coming, and I'm just so proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys are making me cry. Like, what's up? Like, I got no makeup.
Vulnerability is a superpower, and you know, thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we wanted to just make sure that Carlita got highlighted within the activism part of the conversation, and there's room for everyone. So thank you for all your comments going on in the chat. But Andre, did you get a chance to do any protest work? Was that a part of your activism? Did you participate in any way?
You know, I have to say, first and foremost, I have to give a shout out, for one thing, to all the women. I mean, you know, women are so involved in so much of this, and are really the catalyst of really pushing a lot of these things in front of the camera, behind the camera. And I know just from my own experience, you know, my wife, Catherine, is extremely involved in all of this stuff. I mean, she's, you know, she, like Carlita, she takes a lot of photographs. I mean, she's been at just about every protest, every rally, you know, all around the country. And she's got photographs that, you know, I mean, they're just unbelievable. And, you know, I mean, it was her idea and her concept, the Our World is on Fire, was basically her saying, you know, hey, you know that song? We should do something with it, and really kind of pushing me. So, I mean, but as far as me going out and protesting, Catherine wouldn't allow me to leave the house. The kids won't allow me to leave the house. They won't allow me to do anything. I haven't really left here to do anything for months, literally. They will not let me do anything. But I just think it's really important, because, you know, what you do, Carlita, what you've done is beautiful. What Catherine has done, you know, what all you women have done, you know, in sort of bringing, I mean, if it wasn't for you, I mean, Prince, you know, it's all of this. We're all in this thing together. We're all connected, and it's a beautiful thing. I think we all need to recognize that.
Thank you. And you know, I just wanted to, like, this is the last thing I'm gonna say. But you know, as a woman photographer, like, it's such a male dominated field, And I feel like I always have to prove myself, but my photos speak for me. Like I don't need to be like, oh, I'm a woman. Like these are my photos, this is what I do, you know? And if I could inspire any other person to do it, like that, I'm doing what you know what I mean? Like I'm doing the right thing. I feel like I'm doing the right thing. And you know, I always consider Prince my mentor, and he's still teaching me. Every day he teaches me how to be professional, how to continue and be on my, I was about to say my work, but just to be on my stuff and just do what I gotta do, you know? And like, I want to inspire other women to be able to do their art and not be afraid and just go for it, you know? So, I mean, thank you, Andre, thank you.
Thank you. You know, I mean, it's really important that we all are involved in this. You know, it's not, yeah, I write songs and do what I do. You take photographs, Catherine takes photographs, and other people talk and educate, and other people, bring out the history, and basically it's all a big mosaic of how we can turn this world around. We all got to get involved, you know. Every hands on deck, all hands on deck reality, and nobody, I mean, you don't want to turn around and when your kids or your grandkids say, when that time came, for the world to change, what did you do? Did you participate or did you spectate? And I just think that it's important for you to be able to tell them, yeah, I was involved. I did this, I did that. You might not have seen me. I wasn't, the highest profile, whatever, but I was right in there fighting the good fight. And that's the reason why you can drive around in a car and not feel like somebody's going to come and, yank you out like they did those women and those children in Aurora. So, I mean, it's like, we gotta stay vigilant.
That was heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking.
I cried on that one. So Andre and Carlita, fam, we're gonna shift the conversation towards anchored in where we are now around passion, because that's what's showing up. It's a passion for change. It's a passion for using art to leverage towards change. And I also want to open, Catherine, I know you've been there quiet, but I would love to hear your voice on this also. So just switching around to love and where love holds space within this. And fam, we're gonna give you an opportunity to also ask your questions. So just keep with us, keep it going in the chat, and we're gonna call in some folks to talk to Andre and Carlita and the other panelists, because this is a real conversation about where we can actually grow to in this world. Andre talked about reimagining the Black community, and I would take it a step further. We get to actually reimagine our world. And what type of world do you want to live in, and who are we for one another within that space? I firmly believe I have felt the impact of racism, and I know that story. But in terms of race, I'm a science-driven person. You cannot prove, looking at somebody's DNA, what race they are. That's scientifically impossible, right? Because there is really only one race, the human race. So as we're thinking about love, Andre, one of the first things that comes up for me was the letter that you wrote to Prince on what would have been his 62nd, that's the wine, the 62nd birthday. And I thought it was so beautiful, and it was so authentic. Only someone who knew you when and who was there for the when we get rich and make it stories, could write that letter. Would you be, just share with us, what made you write, it's been 4 years since Prince has passed on. Why this birthday? What is it about this time period that made you write that letter to your friend?
I think, a lot of people don't, know how close we were. They just, it's like you can always tell people, yeah, we were close, and but when people say, because everybody says, oh, he was my best friend, no, he was my best friend, and blah blah blah, and, everybody says that, which is fine. But I think the reality is, we literally, shared the same bedroom like for years, not to mention under the same roof for years, and then even after that, his first house, we lived together, his first apartment actually, and then house, and the second house and third house, first album, second album, third album. I mean, we were extremely tight. So, so I would always find myself in these positions around people that knew him, I guess in the later years, but they didn't know anything about me or our, involvement. And so they would just say the most crazy things to me. It's like, it was insulting. But I didn't take it that way because I understood they just didn't know. So, I guess when I think about, that letter, I just thought about all of that. I thought about, what was going on now, and if I could talk to him, because I know that he would, our city, this was our city where that happened. We literally but we used to transfer on the bus right over there. He used to go to school, and, sometimes we do gigs, and I used to, we were moonlighting briefly in another band over south, where, we were supposed to be in our band over north, but we were like sneaking over south and playing in another band over there that a lot of people, our band didn't know anything about. But anyway, so there's just so much that I just felt that I wanted to share, and it was his birthday. And I thought, I thought it would be a beautiful thing. A lot of people who don't understand that, that version of Prince, or that they don't know that person that I knew. I think sometimes to give, life to that young voice, to that young person, to that experience of that person who, has touched so many people. And it was special for me to see, when they asked me to do some of these tributes that I did, honestly, it was too soon. I mean, the first one that I did with the Revolution, I thought was way too soon for me. Because first of all, I wasn't sure that it was, real. His sister had reached out, Tyka had reached out and let me know what was really going on. But I was like, did you actually see? Because I'm thinking, because this is somebody that I knew. We used to talk about, man, when we get rich, we're gonna, do you think Elvis is really dead? We're gonna fake we're gonna fake like we did. And then we used to talk all this stuff. I mean, I'm not making this stuff up. This is what we as kids, we used to do, and so, and the weird thing for me is because I knew Kim Upshur, and I knew Vanity as well. I knew all of those guys. And so when they passed away, especially Kim Upshur, because Kim and Prince had a very, very, very interesting relationship. And so I was like, this is weird, because I thought, so anyway, my point is, I was like, I wasn't completely convinced that he was really gone. And, obviously.
Because Kim Upshur passed away, I'm sorry to cut you, Andre, but let's get some context for the audience. Kim Upshur passed away like in November, and then Vanity passed away in like February.
Yeah.
January? Yeah. And then Prince, April. But it was like all very close.
February, you're right.
Yeah, she passed away on his mother's.
Because I was in the airport in New Orleans, the exact date it happened. So
yeah. February 15th, Vanity passed away. So it just to give some context, and Kim Upshur being, she was his high school sweetheart.
Well, yeah, exactly. So anyway, yeah. But it was interesting because all of that happened so soon. It had to have an effect on him. But for me, I just thought it was a little bit soon, and I just wanted to be sure that this was for real. And then obviously it couldn't be more real. And so Bobby Z had reached out, and I finally went back and forth because I was like, man, it's too soon. I don't know how you guys can really get your head around this, but he kept at it and made me understand that it was worth it from the fan standpoint. And, and because I had been so far out of it from that, standpoint, I'd, gone on and done my own thing and blah, 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 blah. But I had started reading stuff that fans were saying, and I was like, wow. And, I left, and when I left, I was not, as, engrossed in all of everything that he did. I just, it was just so many things. I was living my own life, doing my own thing and trying to carve out my own little niche for whatever. And but you know, when I did it and it sold out like that, and I looked out into the fans, the faces of the fans, you know, here, there, and you know, and it was just, it started to make me look at my relationship with Prince differently, and my connection differently, and I felt almost an obligation, you know, because I thought, well, if it were me, I would want him to do that for me, to step up and sort of represent, you know. And then same with the MPG, when they had asked me to do the thing at the Excel Center, which was different, you know, because I mean, you know, I had taken a 27-year hiatus, and next thing I know, I'm in front of 18,000 people, and I'm like, you know, and I'm singing lead for Prince songs, which are not the easiest songs to sing, you know. And so it was, but it was a beautiful thing, and I have to say, you know, the band that Prince had, you know, Morris Hayes and all those, you know, Sonny T, and all of those guys, Cassandra, and, you know, I mean, Mike Scott, they were just so unbelievably amazing. And they made me feel so comfortable and so at home. And I can understand why, you know, Prince had these people, because they were very, very beautiful people. And we were able to do that. And then obviously they had me go over and do some things in Europe. And that's really when it tore me up, you know, because I think, you know, just, you know, because I mean, all of this I think was in the letter, you know, I have to say, you know, it was all a part of it, you know, tore me up because, you know, I, you know, saw the tears in the eyes of the people in the crowd. And all of that came and kind of made me feel like I needed to put that in that letter and to speak to him on that level. Because, you know, I know he would have never expected me to do anything like that, you know, because he knew I was like, I had moved on, and, you know, I wasn't interested in, you know, and really getting back into that. And as time had gone by, we started to talk to each other more and more. And I just think that I was able to, you know, we reconnected. He would call me and invite me out to gigs and shows, and we were starting to move back into a friendship space. And I just think that, you know, I would have never thought he would be gone. I thought if anybody would be gone, it would probably have been me. So I think that had a lot to do with the letter and why I wanted to reach out and write it at that point, and just, you know, connect, not just to him, because I think he's out there listening, but also to, you know, he's got so many amazing, beautiful fans, and his family really, that really respect him, love his music, love his message, love what he stands for, love what he represents. And so for me to be able to, you know, speak to him and have them, you know, sort of, you know, come to that sort of, whoa, I just thought that was the least I could do.
No, it was beautifully done. I do want to lift up the fam in the room. So we went through what we know about Andre. What do we want to know? So what did you learn? What do you want Andre to know? Arlene, I see you have a message here. You want to share it with Andre?
Sorry, which I had sent a few messages.
Yeah, you said thanks, Andre. This
right. Yeah, I just wanted to say, Andre, oh my goodness, I'm quite moved to be speaking to you, because I really appreciate your work musically, and your political activism, and your role in Prince's life, and your family's roles, and your family, and what you do for Minneapolis and other places now. So anyway, that's a lot, but I just wanted to say thank you for your efforts. It must have been strange to step into that role after Prince died. And I really, so many of us are so grateful that you moved forward with that in a way that's very, has a lot of integrity to it. Yeah. So thank you.
Appreciate that. I mean, you know, nobody, first of all, nobody stepped into Prince's role. It's, you know.
No, I didn't mean into his role. I meant into your role in just moving your place in that moment forward. You know, you could have not done that. You could have pulled back, but I'm just so grateful that you moved forward into what that became for you.
I know, I totally understand. I just, it's you know, because he's such an original kind of individual all the way around. But you know, it was an honor. It was an honor. It was just, you know, I didn't want to. It's hard to even, you know, put yourself in that position, because you know, it's like, you know, you don't, you know, and I saw other people do it, and it's like, you know, I wasn't trying to, you know, it wasn't any kind of platform or anything like that, because some people want to, you know, can look at it that way. But for me, I'm like, look, I just want to connect with, you know, the fans and share in an experience that, you know, and pay respect and homage to someone, you know, who I know I loved, and you know, I can say that, you know, and you know, you know, what that means to me is a lot deeper than, you know, I can't say it's deeper than anybody else, because that doesn't even make any sense. But I just know what my experience was and what we went through when we were kids to get from literally from nothing, you know, to, you know, to being able to realize a dream. So anyway, I don't want to keep going on. I can, obviously I've shown that I can talk a bit much, so I'm just gonna,
Yeah. Thank you.
So Andre, so Robin's harassing me for this one. I don't know if you remember this stellar moment. But a couple years ago, you visited the Republic of Brooklyn, and I hope this is the right one that I'm sharing right now. Is this it? Oh, that's Robin and me. Wrong picture. Wait. But you know, so that it was this day though, Andre. So one second. That's Robin and me there. I will get this. Is it this one? Yeah, I guess the wine is kicking in. There it is.
Oh, okay. I remember that.
Yes.
That was us.
That was us.
And that's Rachel.
That was that thing that Spike Lee does.
Yes.
Exactly.
You want to hear something funny about that? You know, here I go again, but it was hilarious, because I went there with Martin Luther McCoy and his wife, and we were just gone there. We just went to hang out, and then they were like, "Why don't you go up there and say something?" You know, Andre Cymone, you know, and I was like, nobody cares about, you know, Andre Cymone. They just tell me to go in and beat and scram, and so you know. He said, "No, go ahead and say something." I said, all right. So I just thought, you know, let me indulge. I said, "Excuse me, I'm Andre Cymone, and I should be back there somewhere." And I just thought I was just, you know, because I can clown around. So the guy said, you know, they said, yeah. And they didn't, you know, and then somebody said, I think that is Andre Cymone. Somebody said, "Hey, are you really Andre Cymone?" I said, "Yeah." And, you know, they were like, and I look back at those guys like, I think we got something going here. And they said, somebody else went and got somebody else, said, "That is him." And then some people like, "Hey, that is Andre Cymone." She said, "Well, come on," you know, and they walked me in, and that's basically how I got it, to be able to take that picture.
That's hilarious. So that wasn't even planned?
No, not at all.
I had just come from school, and I saw a friend of mine, and she was like, "Hey, I knew you would be here." And I'm like, "Yep." And then I saw you talking. I was like, "I gotta go." I was like, "Is that really Andre Cymone? Really?" And like, we accosted you coming off the stage. So my last question, our last question for you, Andre. So when Jill was on, so shout out to Jill Jones, because Jill Jones is the connection for Andre to be on this episode here. Jill was real, and you just said something that triggered it for me. Jill shared that she didn't realize the impact and significance that she's had on fans. You know, with especially with her first album and how it resonated. And you just said something similar, like, you know, nobody's gonna, you know, no. Meanwhile, I know the Rachel, Robin, and I like, oh, we gotta get this, right? And is that are you, what have you learned in Prince's passing about your impact that you didn't know before?
You know, I will say, you know, I mean, because I'm a very humble. You know, I think, you know, I can't speak for everybody, but, you know, I think sometimes, you know, I don't, I'm not full of myself. I don't think about myself as Andre Cymone, and I just don't, you know, I mean, because my kids kick me around and beat me up and slap me around and make me do stuff around the house and stuff. So they keep me very, very grounded. My family has always kept all of us, you know, grounded. Even Prince, when he would come around, they would, you know, because, you know, everybody had nicknames for him and for me, and, you know, and that's all I'll say about that. But, you know, but I just think that you don't realize what impact you have on until sometimes you talk to people and you go, wow, I'm that guy. And when you think about, you know, when you think about who you looked up to, you know, like say, for instance, for me, you know, I looked up to Larry Graham and Rusty Allen, the bass players from Sly and the Family Stones band. And, you know, I mean, and I know how much I looked up to them and respected them. And I guess to put it in any kind of context, I guess I'm kind of like, you know, in that people look at me and they talk about you, Andre Cymone, man. I remember you played, you know, the cloud bass. You know, people don't know about the cloud bass that came before the cloud guitar and all this kind of stuff. And they would rattle off this history about my contribution to all of this stuff that became, you know, folklore and all of that. And I'm like surprised that people even know that. You know, it's like, I'm like, why do you know that? Like, yeah, you Andre Cymone and all this. And I would just, you know, and, you know, one thing that was really kind of brought it, you know, full circle for me was that I was on a podcast. It was actually a webinar with a bunch of bass players, Victor Wooten, and, you know, Paul Peterson came on, Sonny T came on, a lot of and started talking to Sheila E. came on. And I was always curious because, you know, all these musicians would know who I was. Like Larry Graham knew who I was before he should have, I thought, you know, because I mean, I was doing something and he came up to me and he was there and he was like, I was like, well, how do you know who I am? He said, I heard of you. And so I had to ask Sheila on that webinar, you know, do you know what that was all about? Because we had a jam session way back when we were working on Prince's first album that, I mean, it resonated through that whole community. I mean, Santana and, you know, all of those folks, you know, and it just resonated and it had an impact and I didn't even know it. And so anyway, getting back to the point, it was like, I never really looked at myself as, you know, anything other than Andre and, you know, but now I do, now I realize that, you know, Jill's had an impact, you know, very strong impact, you know, and what she represented, you know, not just, you know, for her records, but for her history and her contribution. And I think people are starting to just really understand more and more what Jill, you know, what role Jill played in, you know, Prince's, you know, music. Because a lot of people, you know, give people credit, you know, where they should probably be giving Jill credit. And other people, it's you know, and for me, myself, I'm like, I always wanted Prince to give the credit that I thought I deserved, you know, and I wasn't trying to make a big deal out of it or anything like that. But I was like, you know, I had always assumed at some point he would say, you know, this, that, and whatever, and, you know, and so, but, you know, I think people are starting to understand as time is going by and, you know, because I stopped doing interviews in 1985 and didn't start doing them again until I think 2014. So I just didn't talk about myself or anything else for that matter during that period of time. And in 2014 was when Trayvon was murdered. And I thought, I'm going to start doing interviews, and obviously people would start asking me about stuff regarding, you know, my history. And so I would have to speak on it. So anyway.
So we're about to wrap up. We've gone way over, and I just want to thank Andre so much for all of your time. We literally could do this all night, but we feel like you probably won't, like, have a life and you probably are sick of talking to us. But one thing I want to say is how much we love your wife, Catherine. She also talked to us for like an hour and a half. She's just amazing. I don't know how she feels, but we feel like we made a really amazing new friend. She was so down to earth. We talked about everything from you to our kids and schools and what we're gonna do with this virus and all these things. She was just so down to earth and so like easy to talk to and just such a nice, humble, kind spirit. It was just awesome to get to talk to her. And I just want to say, I hope you don't mind, but she told us that tomorrow's your anniversary. So we want to wish you a happy anniversary. Thank you so much for like sharing that. I hope you don't mind that I said that. So one of our last questions, like Mauri said earlier, is that we want to end on a note of love. We've talked about some really heavy issues that are very emotionally taxing and hard and difficult. So we want to end on a note of love. So we want to just ask you, if you don't mind, to tell us about Catherine and maybe a little bit about your love story, how you met. We know why you fell in love with her, but maybe you can share that a little bit with the rest of the audience listening, if you don't mind.
Catherine, I could go on about Catherine all day. You know, she obviously keeps me grounded, keeps me focused, and gets me, is my, left hand, right hand, and all of that, and a love story is pretty amazing. You know, her story is really amazing. Just her personal story is just to her. It's unbelievable. But we met. The first time I saw her, I think I might have fallen in love with her the first time I saw her. She was outside my mom's house and came there with this guy that that I knew was kind of trying to figure out where I got my shoes from. And normally when somebody comes, he saw me in some shoes that I wore somewhere, and he's like, "Man, where did you get those shoes?" Normally I just lie and tell people, I'm not gonna tell nobody where I really get stuff from. But she was there, and I was like, I got them from Pastor's in the shopping mall right there downtown. And who's she? Oh, that's Catherine, a friend of mine. I was like, oh, okay. And so anyway, that was the first time we met. And then not long after that, we met again, and we started kind of dating, and but at the time, my life was a mess, and I think the thing is about me, about musicians, especially at that point in my life, I didn't know what it meant to be a man at that point. I'm not gonna lie, I was selfish. I was like, I was a rock star. I ain't gonna lie. I just didn't, I just thought, I did everything, you do. I struggled and worked my way. And I was, even in our young band, we were pretty popular. So I was never, having to deal with not having girlfriends, and always maybe had too many. So, so anyway, at that point, my life was a mess, and I met Catherine, and she was kind of, oddly serious in a strange sort of way, and made me kind of focus a little bit more than I normally would. And then, obviously my life was a mess. I was in a relationship. She said, you need to sort your stuff out, and figure out what you really want to do, because I can't be involved in this. And she went to London and went to school, and and I respected that, I really did, because a lot of times people don't say that, to folks. Sometimes they say, they're. So anyway, so long story short, 10 years later, we meet again, and we wind up hanging out, and she invited me. She was living in New York, invited me to come out there, and we just started hanging out, and pretty much fell in love again, picked up where we left off. And the next thing and the kind of person she was, the next thing I know, I'm sitting down at dinner with Robert Rauschenberg, Jasper Johns, and Merce Cunningham, and Charles Atlas, Stephen Daldry. She showed me a version of New York, a lifestyle of New York that I just didn't even know existed. I'd been to New York a million times, and I always hated New York, but she showed me what was beautiful about New York. I mean, I just never knew, because I think sometimes you can come to New York, and unless you know some people who really know some people who really know New York, you just see the surface, you know, you just get to, you don't really see. She took me in and showed me New York. And I just fell in love with her and fell in love with New York. And, you know, the next thing you know, we were just living, you know, life. And we were just, I mean, it just was a different kind of life for me. And it was all, and I owe it to her. She just made me look at, and you know, she re-inspired me, you know, just in terms of art and music. I started writing, you know, I started, you know, writing a book. I started writing, you know, all kinds of stuff. I really got back into writing music, and, you know, and she would really kind of push me and say, you should do whatever you want. And she would just tell me that I should do this, and would push me. And before you knew it, I was doing stuff, you know, back inspired, and I owe a lot of it to Catherine. So that is.
Aw. We're saying aw too. We were muted, but we were both like aw.
Aw.
Catherine, do you want to speak on your love story?
I just, you know, for me, you know, from that first time I met Andre, somehow it was like I would re-meet him until it was just, it's really bizarre. I mean, even to small little things, I would like come somewhere and there'd be sunglasses on the counter and someone would be like, oh, those are Andre Cymone's glasses. And I was like, okay. And then I'd be somewhere and like, you know, I was standing in a lobby and he'd go walking by. Or I worked as a receptionist at a hair salon and I picked up the phone and this guy that I worked with comes out and he goes, you'll never believe who's coming in. And I said, who? And he's like, Andre Cymone. I was like, what the hell is going on? So it's just this like, I mean, like really reoccurring thing in my life. And I honestly, in the beginning, just thought, oh, this is just, he's a bad idea. But one day I was, I'm so serious. But one day, because we were just hanging out, we had, you know, people that we knew mutually. And I was like, I mean, I would tell girls who would talk about him, I'm like, you're so dumb. But I was standing on the balcony and I was standing next to him and I have no idea what happened. But all of a sudden I was like, well, I like him. And somebody called me from inside and I turned around and I walked into a glass door. And that was like the moment that I had started liking him, and it was embarrassing. And he looked at me and it just sort of like laughed and did not let it go unnoticed, because that's not really how he does it. He doesn't let it go unnoticed. But I don't know. I just think that it was definitely a destined love and a destined relationship. And he's just wonderful. And as you know, and as people, you know, get to know, like, I do fight for him because I feel like, you know, a lot of times he will lay back and just sort of, you know, sometimes he can be quiet, sometimes he can be brash, but it's, he's truly one of the best people that I know. And over the course of the time that I've known him, he's grown so tremendously much as a person. And it's not every person that looks at, you know, some of the things that he was talking about, you know, in the beginning, and looks at it and just really, there's people who never grow. And he did all the growth. So, and I am so grateful that we're spending our life together, and that, you know, I mean, a lot of times when you go away and you're like, I'd love to be with you, but it doesn't happen. But, you know, for 10 years to pass and for us to just completely find each other and really click into what our life's destiny was is a really beautiful thing.
Aww.
Aww.
That's beautiful. And there's, you know, we got to always end on a space of love. So thank you so much for generously sharing your love story with us. And have a wonderful anniversary.
Thank you, guys. We don't have to get cards now. We just did it here at the Purple Paradigm.
We've recorded this, so you can like play it over and over again. Remember when you said this? Awesome. No, this was a fantastic night. Prince fam, I can't thank you enough for joining us. I want to just give a shout out to our special panelists, Damon Cox, DJ Razz Beret, aka the hidden art historian, Dr. Caterina Pierre, Dr. Lynn Stradford, Carlita Lopez, who just said goodbye to us, my beautiful co-host, Robin Shoemaze, And of course, Andre Cymone, thank you so much for the time. Thank you for willingly going over. This has been a dream come true in so many ways for us. And thank you for just being a stand for just what great art looks like in action. And you are truly appreciated. And Catherine Anderson, you know, I appreciate you, sis. You have, you made this night happen. And thank you for just being persistent, because we surely had tropical storms and phone issues and all kinds of craziness happen to make this night occur. And they really would not have happened if you weren't persistent around it. So Robin, you wanna, so thank you, Catherine. Robin, you wanna highlight for the next episode? Oh, she's delayed. 1 second, there you are.
Yes, no, here I am. Yes, I also want to say thank you to all of our special guests, and thank you so much also to Andre and Catherine for helping us make this happen. We have had a very extremely strange week in New York City. In case, I don't know if we said this in the beginning, I'm actually at Mauri's house. She's in the room over there because I still don't have Wi-Fi. I have not been able to connect to the internet at home since Tuesday night or something like that. So, but we were determined to make this happen because we felt really passionate about this topic and about our guests. So, phew, we made it. So I want to just wrap up by just letting you know about our next episode. We had a brainstorming session on Monday and we came up with this new episode for episode 3. It's going to be called Illusion, Coma, Pimp, and Circumstance, Prince as Brand. In this episode, we will explore Prince's multiple identities, his evolution as an artist and a branding mastermind who redefined and transcended the boundaries of music, fashion, and sexuality. So I'm going to finally be able to present some information and presentation around Prince and fashion, because that's my thing. And I was supposed to go and do that this summer and I didn't get to do it. So I'm going to do that on the next episode. We hope to have some other fabulous guests for you, and Mauri and I will try to do our very best to make a really informative and introspective and exciting and interesting and fun episode. So I hope that you will all join us. Now, I know it's really late, but if you're willing to hang out with us for a bit more, our DJ, our resident art historian, undercover DJ Razz Beret, otherwise known as Caterina, is going to play some songs for us to just hang out and listen to. And other than that, we'll see you next month. It's going to be September 7th at 7 p.m. Just so you know, every month on the 7th, you can find us in Zoom talking to the people. I might be at my apartment or I might be in Mauri's house.
You're wherever there's power and internet.
Yeah, I mean,
questionable in New York. Yeah.
So who knows what'll be going on? It's 2020.
That's right. Guys, I'm going to play you out with a little Andre Cymone that's on Tidal. So let's play some Andre music. Why not that? I'm going to hang out. I'm going to play what I got. When there's nobody left in the Zoom, I'll shut it off. So if you stay, I'll play. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kat.